The movie begins with a woman named Heather observing some pigeons while crying profusely. She's also holding a worry stone in her hand, which helps her nerves relax. In the next scene, we are taken to Heather's house, which eerily contains a lot of insects framed on the walls. Meanwhile, a wasp is continuously buzzing in the kitchen, so Heather traps it in a glass. She then urges her husband, Simon, to contact an exterminator, as there appears to be a wasp's nest in the house, but he doesn't pay much attention. Before leaving for work, Simon reminds her that they'll be hosting an important dinner for their colleagues tomorrow. He asks Heather to make the necessary preparations, to which she reluctantly agrees. Later, Heather hears the trapped wasp buzzing in the kitchen, which irritates her. As a result, she mercilessly kills it. This incident triggers memories from when she was just a kid, where she and her best friend, Carla, stumbled upon an injured pigeon. Despite the bird's pain, Carla grabbed a huge brick and killed it to put it out of its misery. Returning to the present, Simon is seen leaving for work as usual, and Heather notices him on the phone with someone, setting up a meeting. This upsets her, and she later checks Carla's profile and tries to send her a message but hesitates and ends up canceling. The scene then cuts to the dinner party, where Simon has invited many important people from his professional circle. Everyone else is having a good time, but Heather feels very isolated. In the kitchen, she finally sees where the wasps are coming from. Heather is irritated by the continuous buzzing sound, so she grabs a hammer and begins striking at the ceiling like a madwoman. Suddenly, a large nest of wasps falls to the floor, and the room is engulfed by the insects, so Simon quickly pulls her out and closes the door. Although no one is hurt in the incident, the guests become worried and promptly leave. Simon gets very angry at his wife and blames her for ruining his important night. Fuck! He finally assures her that he will contact the exterminator tomorrow. In another scene, we meet Carla, who works as a cashier at a supermarket. After finishing her shift, she heads home, and we discover that she's currently pregnant. Carla then receives a message from Heather, who is asking her to meet and promising to make her time worthwhile. However, Carla ignores it and texts her online friend, Logan, who has promised to help her with paying rent. It turns out she's having a hard time making ends meet and is struggling financially. When Carla gets home, we see that she lives with her 4 children and a husband who is old enough to be her dad. Soon after, she receives a text message from a man named James, who asks her to meet for 2 hours. Carla makes excuses to her husband before leaving the house, and James, who seems to be loaded, picks her up outside on the street. Sometime later, he drops her off at the same spot, and Carla seems to have received some money from him. It turns out that because of her financial struggles, she occasionally works as a prostitute. Carla then checks Logan's message and learns that he hasn't replied. And so, she finally responds to Heather, agreeing to meet with her. The next morning, the two friends meet after a long time and catch up on their lives. Heather seems happy to see her, but Carla isn't quite thrilled and asks her to get to the point. Here, we learn that although they were close during their childhood, they stopped talking at some point. Heather then tries to remind Carla of the pigeon she killed, but the latter doesn't seem to remember. Carla is now getting late for work and proceeds to leave. Heather decides to walk with Carla and informs her friend how she and her husband have tried to get pregnant many times but have been unsuccessful. They even tried insemination, but it's not working. Suddenly, Carla asks if she wants her unborn baby, but Heather quickly refuses. Heather then reveals that her husband is cheating on her with another woman he met online. When Carla asks how she found out, Heather reveals that the other woman is none other than herself. She admits that she has been catfishing her own husband for 2 years, and he now wishes to meet her. Carla doesn't understand why Heather is telling her all this, and she's done with the conversation and heads to work. Later, while she's working at the counter, Heather returns and requests a private conversation. Carla is clearly annoyed by everything and refuses. But Heather claims that she has £10,000 in her bag and will give it to her if she meets her at the loading bay in 5 minutes. Upon hearing this, Carla's mind is instantly changed, and she goes to meet her friend in private. Heather doesn't waste any time and states that she wants Carla to kill her husband, Simon. The pregnant lady is shocked, but Heather explains how he has cheated on her and abused her emotionally and physically for many years. She will give her an additional 40 grand if she does the job. Heather reminds her friend how easily she killed the pigeon years ago, which is why she is perfect for this job, but Carla argues that it was just a freaking bird. To persuade her, Heather reveals that she is aware of Carla's financial difficulties and that her husband is a gambling addict. Here, Heather surprisingly discloses that she's actually her online friend, Logan, who has been talking to her for months. This leaves Carla flabbergasted, and she refuses to talk any further about this. Carla begins to walk away, but after a few steps, she stops and reflects on her miserable life. As a result, she eventually changes her mind and tells Heather to raise the payment.
75 grand.
In the next scene, Heather is at home, waiting for her friend's arrival, and we see her neighbor's child playing outside. Not long after, Carla shows up wearing a hoodie, so Heather discreetly allows her in without the neighbors noticing. Carla explains that 75 grand is not worth going to jail for murder and emphasizes that they need a proper plan. Next, she mentions that she has watched many crime documentaries and is aware of the common mistakes that murderers make, and this is why she wears gloves today. Carla mentions that she plans to use random weapons found around the house. She also insists that they stage it as a robbery, and she'll steal a few items after Simon's death. After this, Carla takes some tea and biscuits, and Heather remarks that a botched burglary is too cliché. She suggests that she will put something in Simon's drink to make him unconscious, then call Carla to kill him. However, the pregnant lady opposes the idea because an autopsy might discover drugs in his system. She wonders where they will hide the body, to which Heather explains that Carla will have to cut him up and feed the pieces to a dog. Hearing this, Carla is horrified and can't believe that Heather could even consider such a violent thing. Carla asserts that since she is in charge of the murder, she will do it her own way. She asks Heather to pass him out with alcohol before she comes in to do her part. After this, the women roleplay how the plan will unfold when Heather discovers her husband's dead body.
Oh my God, my darling.
She will ask for the neighbors' help before calling the cops. Moments later, Heather begins discussing their childhood and mentions that when she was a teenager, she was severely depressed. Carla responds that they all had a tough life, but Heather insists that she actually spent her days in misery. She suddenly blames Carla for this, which leaves the latter shocked. Carla claims that it was school, where everyone was mean to each other. She can't even remember and wonders what she did so wrong that Heather is still upset with her till now. In response, Heather reveals how, when they were in 7th grade in school, they were friends, but one day they suddenly weren't for no reason. In a flashback, we see little Heather walking down the school hallway when she was approached by Carla and a group of girls. Carla then humiliated her former friend by informing everyone about her crush on a boy named Toby. She told them about how Heather touched herself in the shower while thinking about him, even though Heather denied it. Upon hearing this, everyone started calling her Dirty Heather, and the poor girl ran away crying. In the present, Heather says that her nickname became Dirty Heather after that incident. Carla is annoyed by all of this and says she didn't come here to get lectured. She threatens to leave, but Heather knows that she won't because she needs the money. This enrages Carla, who admits that she grew up in a dysfunctional family. She reveals that on the day she killed the pigeon, her father brutally beat her mother until her eye protruded. After some time, her dad gradually shifted his abuse onto her as well. Therefore, when she used to hang out with Heather and her perfect family, she felt jealous and angry. Carla realized they couldn't be friends anymore because Heather wouldn't understand her situation or what she was going through. In response, Heather reveals that she knew what was going on in Carla's family, but she was just a kid and couldn't do anything to help her. Heather hoped that by spending time together and doing little fun things, she could make her friend happy. Through a flashback, we see an incident in which Heather was leaving her class when suddenly Carla approached her and forcefully took her to the storage room. After that, she began brutally beating up her former friend and almost broke her nose. In the present, Heather explains that she used to love her. This is why she didn't reveal anything when the principal asked about her attacker. However, Clara tries to justify her actions and says that school is a training ground for life, and that everyone had a tough life. She then gets very annoyed and says that she wants to leave if Heather doesn't want to talk about the plan. Up next, Clara asks her to show a picture of Simon, as she doesn't know who she's supposed to kill. Here, Heather shows her a photo of the couple, and Clara is shocked to see the man. It is revealed that this is the same James she has been sleeping with for money. But Heather reveals that his real name is Simon, and he is her husband. James is just a pseudonym he uses when visiting prostitutes. At this point, Clara suddenly begins to feel dizzy, and it turns out Heather had spiked her tea. And then all of a sudden,
What are you about to do?
After that, she writes something on a note and leaves it at her next-door neighbor's door. She then returns home and sits in front of Clara, who is tied to a chair and gagged in the mouth. Moments later, Heather makes Clara smell something and wakes her up. The latter is shocked to see herself in such a state and attempts to break free, but to no avail. Heather then tells her that she used to believe something was wrong with her body when she couldn't conceive. But when she looks back now, she knows exactly why it wasn't working. Next, Heather talks about when they were in year 9 and had made some nice friends in school. They invited her to a school dance, but she was terrified to go, worrying that Clara would be there. It had been a year since the storage room incident, and she used to have panic attacks. But when she found out that Clara wasn't coming, Heather felt relieved and headed to school. She was having a good time at the dance until Clara unexpectedly appeared, which scared the shit out of her. We see how Heather ran away from the dance upon seeing her old friend. She hid in a bathroom to protect herself, but Clara and 2 other girls managed to find her. The 3 then violated poor Heather and inserted an object into her private parts. They even laughed at her cries, enjoying every moment of their sadistic action. In the end, Clara called Heather a good girl, as if she had performed well. After telling this, Heather questions how Clara could forget what she did. Next, she goes upstairs and calls her husband, urging him to send her a text on his way home. Heather changes into some fancy clothes and heads downstairs. She finds Clara has attempted to escape and tells Clara that she has been unable to conceive because she has felt a blockage inside her since that day. The doctors conducted scans but found nothing. Yet for her, the blockage has been growing inside her like a tumor. Soon, she decides to remove the gag from Clara's mouth to let her speak, but Heather warns her not to scream and threatens to kill her immediately if she does. After removing the gag, Clara pleads with her for mercy. She apologizes for the past and admits that she was a messed up person who liked to inflict pain on others. Clara even agrees to give Heather her unborn child, surprisingly revealing that it is Simon's anyway. She believes Heather and Simon deliberately planned everything to get the baby. Suddenly, Heather reveals that Simon is actually dead because she killed him. She also describes her plan to cut open Clara's belly and take the baby while she bleeds to death. Hearing this, Clara begins to scream, which attracts the attention of the neighboring girl. And so, Heather reacts quickly and covers her mouth with duct tape. Just then, she receives a text message from someone and reads it. Heather then starts applying her makeup and reveals how she wanted to be pregnant and restart her life. But when she discovered that the girl who ruined her childhood had been sleeping with her husband, she was devastated and felt empty again. After this, Heather grabs a knife and cuts Carla's ties, saying that she's trusting her not to run away. But as soon as Carla is free, she begins running around the house, looking for a way to escape. She discovers that all of the doors are locked, so she grabs a chair and tries to defend herself. The neighborhood girl witnesses this and believes Clara is trying to kill Heather. Since Carla is unable to find an exit, Heather summons her downstairs for a conversation. Once they settle down, Clara says that they are certainly not alike. She admits that she was violent and has done some horrible things in the past. But she always acted on her animal instincts and never carefully planned in detail to hurt someone like this. In response, Heather calmly places the knife on a table in front of them, urging her to choose between kindness and violence. She asks Clara what she would do with the woman who threatened to cut open her belly just a while ago. During this, Heather comes closer to her while grabbing something in her pocket. Clara asks what it is, but she doesn't answer, and Clara assumes that it is a weapon, so she impulsively grabs the knife and stabs her friend in the belly. And then we find out that it is just her worry stone. It all turns out to be a trap, as Simon, who is still alive, returns home. Heather then calls Clara good girl before collapsing on the ground. Simon is horrified to find his wife lying in a pool of blood next to Carla. He asks what happened, but she soon passes away. We then see a flashback to their childhood when Clara had just killed the pigeon. A terrified Heather ran away from there, while Clara cried and asked her friend to come back. In the present, the neighbors arrive at the scene and misunderstand the situation. Simon tries to explain that he didn't kill his wife, but the neighbor says they know what he did. She hands him the note that his wife had left for them earlier, in which Heather expressed her worry about how her husband and his mistress were planning to kill her. The cops soon show up and arrest Clara and Simon. As the movie ends, we see a wasp leave Heather's body through her knife wound. Thus, we reach the end of this film. Thanks for watching. You can like this video to support us. Don't forget to subscribe for more content. See you in the next video. Goodbye.